Hello everyone, we're actually sitting in Page One bookstore here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and if you don't know this bookstore, you really should because it is one of the greatest supporters, I think, of local authors in the area. And here with me is Vic Milan, if you want to say hello.
Rar, I'm Victor Milan, this is my dinosaur.
And there is an actual logical reason why he did that. Vic has some books coming out. Vic is actually a writer that is quite well known, but you may not realize that you've read him. And we'll talk about your career to date in a while here, but first let's talk about the books that you have coming out now.
Okay, well the one we're here actually signing today, of course, is a joint effort edited by Steve Sterling, S.M. Sterling, and Emily is in that one.
Yes.
There are a lot of fine authors in that, and a lot of them will be here today, which doesn't do you any good, but it's an excellent anthology and you might want to check it out. The one I'm actually excited about of all my own that's coming out July 28th is this one, The Dinosaur Lords. Which
has been described as Game of Thrones meets Jurassic Park by
George R.R. Martin
himself. Yes. So, and I have had a chance to read these, and they are fantastic. They're fun and they're epic, and they're just very, very cool. But why don't you give a bit of a background on what the Dinosaur Lords are? Because it's more than just dinosaurs.
Well, yeah,
it's
a complete world and a complete culture. And what I'm portraying in this one is only one of the many cultures on the world. It's basically it's kind of what it looks like. I mean, there's a knight riding a dinosaur, and that's a large part of what it is. It's essentially Renaissance-level society with the usual intrigues and family issues, and what I hope are vivid and engaging characters. And the dominant life forms on the world, which is called Paradise, are all things that existed in the Mesozoic, the age of dinosaurs, including flying reptiles, swimming reptiles, a lot of the vegetation that they had, and of course dinosaurs.
And people ride the dinosaurs, people farm the dinosaurs, but there's a lot of...
Absolutely, yeah, they're everyday creatures, they're wild animals, they're domestic animals, and they're used in warfare prominently. So
quite the battle mount.
Yeah, they are, seriously, yeah, especially the duck-billed dinosaurs, the usual ones, and the knight is actually kind of a guidance system, since the real weapon is the dinosaur.
And it's kind of a feudal society, is it not?
Essentially, this one is, in particular, it's called the Empire of Nueva Europa. Now, this planet is not Earth to start with, but it is derived from Earth. It's essentially a lost Earth colony. And the cultures are also derived from Earth. The dominant culture of the Empire is Spania, which is a Hispanic-derived culture. But there are various other Western European cultures within the Empire, and then essentially a lot of Asian cultures eastward on the continent. But the dominant culture in Nueva Europa is essentially a feudal system with the empire, with kingdoms, and with very complicated levels of dukes and counts and barons and such in vassalage to them. Mm-hmm. So. And
why don't you talk about the religion, because the religion's very interesting.
Well, there basically is a dominant worldwide religion, but it has infinite number of sects and interpretations. Basically, the religion constitutes the worship of the supposed 8 creators, the 8 beings who are credited or credit themselves with creating the world. And they basically have taken on to themselves the names and attributes derived from the Bagua, the 8 trigrams that are associated with the I Ching, and actually a whole lot of Asian, especially Taoist culture. And there are reasons for that, which will eventually come out of the stories.
And I haven't read the release version yet, but does it still open with the sighting of the gray angel?
Absolutely. And
that's very creepy.
And that is important. Thank you. Yeah, it starts with an unusual event, but it is also the figure is also very much a background character from the first novel, but is still important. So.
Yeah, do you want to describe the gray angel, because it's very creepy?
Oh yeah, the gray angel is a creature. Actually, a friend of mine came up with this years ago, literally when I decided to start writing the book. In, I guess, August of 2003, I was visiting some friends in St. Louis, and told them, okay, this is the one I decided to work, and I started on it. And my friend was driving me around. He got this kind of thoughtful look, and he says, yes, and they stride fully formed out of cliffs. And it's like,
Very creepy.
holy gee, can I use that? I've got to use that because that's epic. Yeah, they're physical manifestation. They are essentially supernatural beings. In fact, they are literally the angels who serve the will and the interests of the creators. Their physical manifestation is that they're about 8.5 foot tall, look like desiccated corpses, and their skin, such as it is kind of looks like a mass of gray packing peas. You know, it's a weird kind of corrugated mess like frozen writhing worms. So they're hideous in their real aspect for the most part, and have trouble actually hiding it for any length of time. So and they can do some fairly nasty things. They're well, archangels, and are most people in the modern era of the book consider the creators to be legendary, the Grey Angels to be mythical, but obviously they're in for a huge surprise.
Right, and the world building really reminded me of Anne McCaffrey in that it appears fantastical, but it's not really. Once you get down to the bones of it, it's pretty science fiction.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, the idea was that I wanted to create a functioning world with as functional an environment as I could design, and functioning human societies that operated as part of it. So I have spent a great deal of time and effort, and hopefully not tell you about it too much in the actual book, but building the background. And I really love it. I really love my setting and my characters, and the world, the culture, and well, the dinosaurs.
Well, because Vic and I are in the same writers' room, we also had a lot of fun talking about how to get the exposition in there and all the different cool ways you sort of unspool it as the story progresses.
And Emily and the rest of the writers group were an inestimable help, by the way. Thank you.
Well, I was actually gone for a lot of it, so I can't really take much credit myself. My favorite character, though, from this series is Shira.
So that's not an uncommon choice. Shira is, well, an Allosaurus, and which is a type of predatory dinosaur. And another thing that happens in the book is that because it's not Earth during the Mesozoic, dinosaurs that existed vastly far apart in time coexist, like Allosaurus and Tyrannosaurus rex, who were far separated. They were top predators in their area in their day. She starts the book as the very, very, very rare war-bound that's a meat-eating dinosaur. They're basically impossible to train unless they imprint on you from birth. And by accident, she imprinted on one of the fairly significant characters, but they are parted due to mishaps at the beginning. And then she spends basically what is now Book 1 and Book 2 trying to get back to the individual who's actually a male, whom she regards as her mother. And she does have some help with this. And I try to make her a sympathetic character. Obviously, dinosaurs are now not thought to be the dumb, barely animated lumps of clay that they were when I was a kid back in the 60s. It has come out that they were obviously a lot more vibrant and active creatures, and with a higher degree of intelligence than we gave them credit for. And frankly, one of the reasons I think Shira is such a fan favorite, because she's consistently a favorite of people who have read the book in its various manifestations, and I love her. I based her personality to a degree on my dog Emma.
Right. Because she does kind of have that very endearing loyalty.
Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of her trait. That, and well, she's a 30-odd foot killing machine.
Yes.
We all have our vices.
Yes, but it's very effective the way you keep the reader on her side as she goes through her personal quest to be reunited with her knight. And is she albino?
Actually, she's not. That's the other. There are two major characters who have two of the three known giant meat-eating war mounts. The other one is one of the villains in the series, the human villain, as it were, whose name is Duke Falk von Hornberg, and he rides a somewhat dwarf albino T-Rex named Snowflake, who is, by dwarf you mean he's only like 30-odd feet long. He's not 40-some. So.
Yeah, he's rideable.
He's rideable. He's still huge and will still eat you.
And he's albino.
Yes.
Just really, really cool visuals. Do you want to sort of give a sketch of what the political situation is that sort of kicks off the story at the beginning?
Well, basically, yeah, you have an emperor who is seated on the basis that he was considered to be ineffectual and wouldn't do anything because the ruling family from which the emperors are drawn and the diet that elect the emperors don't want the system kicked over. It's functioned perfectly well for centuries. They want it to continue. But he turns out to be not quite the amiable doofus that everyone imagines. So he starts trying to do things like centralize power so that he could rule, not just reign. And that has already started to destabilize the empire. It starts with the climactic battle of a war that was basically kind of a war of rebellion against the imperial overreach. And that forms the backdrop. Another thing that happens is that there's a province off the far reaches of the empire called Providence, which has been kind of taken over by a peace and beauty and love cult, the Garden of Beauty and Truth. And they're benign enough, but back in the imperial capital, it's suspected that they're heretics, and that their heresy will cause the mythical disaster called a Grey Angel Crusade. Remember the Grey Angel Emily brought up? Well, supposedly they every once in a while decide humans want paring back, or humans have done something like God had tried to invent gunpowder, which is a no-no, and they set forth to kill as many humans as they can until they figure the humans get their minds right. Obviously, this is something that, while not everybody believes again is real, is not something anyone wants to have happen.
Exactly. Yeah. So what I hope people are getting from all this is there's just incredible layers to these stories. I mean, there's the feudal society, which is fairly recognizable from fantasy. There's the dinosaurs, which are this awesome science fictional component, and then there's this sort of epic, I wouldn't even say space opera, but the idea of like the evil empire and the overreach and the politics and all of these things, all playing at these three different levels, and narrated and guided along nicely by these very, very engaging characters, so each taking the face of their particular story element. And so, what day does it come out?
It comes out on the 28th of July, is available for pre-order from Amazon and from Barnes & Noble.
And we highly recommend it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you may not recognize the name Victor Milan. And I keep wanting to say Milan, but it's actually Milan.
Well, I say it that way. The proper pronunciation is Milan.
Okay.
Milan.
Because
but I never say
it's
it.
not Italian.
It's in fact Spanish.
Or Catalonian or Spanish?
Yeah, it's Catalan. Although it's actually Castilianized Catalan. The Catalan version is Milan.
Gotcha.
But like 3 people in North America actually speak Catalan, and I speak like 5 words of it. But yeah, it's Milan or whatever. Milan is right out. I was called that sometimes growing up. But otherwise, I won't punch. If you say Milan, that's fine.
Especially if you're talking up his books at the same time.
Absolutely.
Totally
Actually, you could even say Milan in that case. I don't care.
And you've actually had quite a long career.
Yeah, I made my first professional sale a month after my 20th birthday in 1974. So I'm coming up on 41 years as a professional writer, and I've been a full-time professional writer for most of that period, a couple of breaks.
But you survived a very interesting time in publishing history. You survived the 1980s and 1990s.
Yes.
So first of all, did you always write under your name, or do you have a pen name?
Oh, I have innumerable pen names.
Okay, so we'll have to list off some of your pen names.
Actually, I forgot to bring the one I intended to. The first book I ever published that was what I consider a legitimate book, I published some fairly scurrilous books before that, but was a Western called The Night Riders, for which I used the pseudonym Keith Gerard. And it came out from Doubleday in, I think, 1979. And along the years, I've done both some series books of my own and also action-adventure franchise series. The most prominent one of my own was the Storm Riders trilogy, which I did under the name of Robert Barron. Also, I have written innumerable franchise books under house names, ranging from J.D. Harden for the old adult westerns originally created by Playboy and I guess continued by Ace, and then prominently for the last well, since about 2000 or 2001, I've written a number of books for Gold Eagle under the James Axler house name, both in the Outlanders and mostly in the Deathlands series.
And just to sort of fill in the uninitiated, house names are authors that might be quite famous who don't actually exist. Or if they did exist, their name was appropriated by a company that then hires out the novel writing projects, and it's always under that same name. So some of the very popular long-term series out there aren't actually written by one person. So the Nancy Drew novels is an example. Hardy Boys, Babysitter's Club, Anna Martin actually exists. She did not write everything. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, here is the most recent of mine. It's the next to last Deathlands novel that I've written, Iron Rage. It also, the Deathlands series as of now is going away, and, excuse me, because it's the publisher's overall owner, Harlequin, of all things, was bought by someone else. They decided to continue the romance line and cancel the Gold Eagle Adventure books. So the last Deathlands novel ever, until it's picked up again, until the series is picked up again, will be a book called Devil's Vortex, which is also written by me under the James Axler pseudonym.
And that's there's a lot of writers that actually sort of fly under the radar, sometimes for decades at a time. People don't realize how much writing they've done until they sort of have this breakout hit under their own name, and they're just, oh, you know, where did this person come from? When they actually do have a lot of experience. It's very, very typical in the industry. But you survived what we tend to refer to as the publishing apocalypse of the 1980s and early 1990s. So people who know their publishing history, which is probably not a lot, probably kind of an odd thing to know, in sort of the middle of last century, a lot of book distribution was aggregated. The small regional distributors went away, and we ended up with one big Monte distributor, so that when the recession hit in the 1980s and things melted down, they really melted down, and unless you were a marquee A-list author, it was very, very hard to stay afloat as a writer, and it ended a lot of careers. What was your experience going through that horrific time?
Well, it was rough, but actually I was able to make my living through that by doing various of the work for hire type things,
right?
Including the adult westerns. Actually, for a long time, my most prominent series was a series called The Guardians. It was published by Berkeley, and it was a post-apocalypse action-adventure series. It concluded like in the early 90s, I believe. I did 16 of the 18 that were published, and I still get fan mail about it, fan emails about it. I basically tried to do them as cinematic and purely fun action-adventure novels, and I appear to have succeeded. So, and they were a lot of fun to do.
And you basically went underground in a way.
Yeah, I had a lot of stuff published. The predominance of stuff that I published has not been under my own name. It's been under various pseudonyms.
Which isn't to say there isn't a lot of stuff out there under the name.
Well, I've done, there have been, I guess, a dozen or so books under my own name.
Yeah, a dozen or so is a lot.
Yeah.
And you're nowhere near done yet in your career.
I hope not.
Yeah. But, you know, so the Dinosaur Lords is you back as Vic Milan. But while we talk about the early Vic Milan, what kinds of things did early Vic Milan?
Well, the most prominent that I did was Cybernetic Samurai, which attracted a lot of attention when it came out in 1985, I believe. And actually got a lot of attention for the Hugo Awards, although it did not make the final ballot. It got me a lot of very, very nice compliments from fellow authors, including many I didn't know. And again, I continue to encounter people who are fans of it today. There was also a sequel of it published called Cybernetic Shogun that, because of some mishandling on everyone's part, including my own, never came out in paperback.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah, sadly. And those were my big ones for a while. I've also had techno-thriller novels out, historical novels, and a couple of science fiction novels, including one of the novels, the standalone novels in the Wild Cards Shared Universe series.
Right. And why don't we talk about that a little bit? So Vic is part of the group of people who write for the Wild Card series, and for people who don't know the Wild Card series, it is a shared universe that was created originally by George R. R. Martin, Roger Zelazny. Who else were some of the originals?
Well, actually, it was we had a gaming group playing a super-powered role-playing game called Super World,
Okay.
which I actually gave George as a gift. And there were a number of us in the group. He ran it, and Melinda Snodgrass, John Joseph Miller, his wife Gail, Walter John Williams, and various other people. They were the most regular of the people who have gone on to become prominent writers, or actually were already. At that point, we're all professional writers by that point. We played the game obsessively for a couple of years, and suddenly George decided, well, we need to find a way to make money off of this. And so he and Melinda sat down over the course of a couple of afternoons and came up with a brilliant way to convert the rather different role-playing environment and the characters we had created, the society he had created for us, into what would be a viable series with the science fiction underpinning. And then he also invited various other writers of some prominence, the most prominence obviously being Roger Zelazny, who was a near neighbor of his in Santa Fe, and Walt Bud Simons, Howard Waldrop, and Lou Shiner, and numerous other people, Ed Bryant. And there have been a whole lot of writers come in and out of the consortium over the years, but I was actually one of the originals.
Right, and even if viewers haven't heard of the Wildcards universe at all, it's, you know, the history of the series is, it tracks a lot of the history of science fiction, and especially science fiction here in New Mexico, who was writing and who was working and you know, who was talking to whom and interacting. And this series got rebooted. It's probably been, what, 10 years now?
Around, yeah.
Yeah,
God,
since the reboot.
Terrible to think, but yeah, that's...
Yeah. And a whole new generation of authors was brought in, including like Daniel Abraham and Kerry Vaughan and Ian Tregillis, but Vic has actually been in both.
Yeah.
Both the originals and in the reboot.
Of course, it's also kind of daunting that some of our new writers who are just great, I mean, you've heard of them in other contexts, they brought a lot to the Wildcards universe. Some of them, you know, came in raving about how they were kids, how they were fans of the series as kids.
Kids, yeah.
It's like, oh my God, I'm old.
Yeah, Kerry Vaughan has a picture on her website, I don't know if it's still there, but of herself dressed up as Peregrine.
I've not seen that, I'll have to look for it.
Yeah, it's, yeah, that was at Mile High Con the year they called Donner Con because it got snowed out.
Well, that one. Okay,
yeah, that's, so she does a picture of it. I don't know that she actually got to wear it for the masquerade at that con. But, so as Vic Milan, the Dinosaur Lords is almost like a resurgence of your original name, even if your writing hasn't, you know, you've been going this entire time. What's the process been like, sort of relaunching Vic Milan yet another time?
Well, it's just kind of the reboot, yeah. Long. I decided that I wanted to write, and this is back in, as I recall, 2003, I wanted to write the most entertaining novel I had inside me. And I had several candidates that I had thought of, and on my birthday, which was August the 3rd, I swore that I would choose, and I woke up that day and thought, it's the Dinosaur Lords, because I love dinosaurs. I spent years writing it through enormous hardships, including nearly fatal bout of sickness.
Yes, which we're all glad you pulled through that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have without the help of a lot of my friends, especially within the science fiction field, the New Mexico community especially. And thank them all. Also, eventually, I got it finished and got it with the help of the writers group, Critical Mass, into a form that I thought was pretty good. And my friend and benefactor, George R.R. Martin, actually got his agent, Kay McCauley, to agree to represent it.
Yeah, which is something that I know people who want writing careers don't want to hear, that even after how many years of writing professionally and how many publication credits, that you can still find yourself again back in the agent hunt. And
yeah.
it very much is a recurring process for a lot of authors.
Yeah, it's a gross thing. I lucked into it this time, but frankly have absolutely no advice other than try hard in terms of how to get one now.
Or write something like the Dinosaur Lords. But yeah, so, and then you sold the rights to tour.
Back in 2011, sold what was then a trilogy. It's now still a trilogy, but things have somewhat changed. The original editor was a little bit deliberate in editing, I must say.
He's the one who got fired.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And,
we won't.
Yeah, but there was also my friend Ian Tregillis had also had some difficulties, a brilliant writer, a really great guy. But he suddenly got a new editor, also at Tor, and I remember a couple of years in a row he would turn up at our local science fiction society meetings at ASFIS and brag about his great new editor, Claire Eddy, who was fast and good and actually got things. And I was like, oh, I'm so jealous I want to kill you. But yeah, after my former editor departed, actually the first I officially heard of it was my agent, Kay, emailed me and said, would it be okay if Claire Eddy took over as your editor? And it was like, twist my arm! Oh my God! Yeah. And that was the beginning of starting to really win the lottery on the damn book, to be really blunt. I mean, since then things have gone remarkably well, and one of the most remarkable was the cover.
Which is gorgeous.
The cover is incredible.
Yeah.
Walter John Williams persisted calling it the greatest cover in the history of the universe.
Which is saying something, because we have Daniel Abraham in our group, and he's got the most insane cover karma of anybody.
Yeah.
Right now. And yet,
I've seen some fabulous covers. There are some great covers out there, but I honestly cannot name a better one than this one.
It's fantastic.
And it really also, and thanks to artist Richard Anderson and Irene Gallo, the art editor, for picking it, and it really does sum up a lot of the feel of the book. So I'm thrilled by that.
Yeah. And so it's been a long road. It's by no means over for you, but this is sort of your latest renaissance is the Dinosaur Lords and the launch of this book, which we're hoping is huge, and I recommend it to anybody out there. It's just fantastic. If you like fantasy, if you like science fiction, if you like sort of the Anne McCaffrey sort of Pern kind of feel, if you like the Memory of Earth, Orson Scott Card sort of computer oversoul, any of these things, it's got all of this without being it's not overdone, it's not overpacked full of these things. It just lays them all out beautifully, and so highly, highly recommend it.
Plus it's got dinosaurs.
And it's got dinosaurs, and this one has metallic paint on it, which just makes it even cooler.
Awesome. It's my mascot.
Yeah. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Emily.